the Fantasy Podcast. News, reviews, and interviews from the world of myth and legend. With your host, Oliver McNeil.
Episode 6 of the Fantasy Podcast. Hello, I'm your host, Oliver McNeil, and in today's episode we are going to go all Marvel-based. Superheroes and supervillains. Now, a long time ago, in a town called Tunbridge Wells, I met a very tall, dashing goth who used to walk around the streets with top hat and cane. Now, that was in our 20s. Fast forward, two gentlemen in their 40s sitting in a cottage living room. Now, I am now a fantasy photographer, and Brady, the goth aforementioned, is now the editor of Marvel UK. Fantastic fellow. Now, it was a absolute pleasure seeing Brady again, and we discuss all kinds of fascinating things. His time with Stan Lee, how you go about editing a magazine that's so huge and well read as the Marvel. The difference between the US Marvel comics and the UK Marvel comics. How the graphic novels have boomed over the years. Anyway, sit back, have a glass of spider venom, and enjoy today's interview. Hello, I'm with Brady Webb, who is the editor of Marvel UK, and also an old friend. We've known each other for
far too many years.
Yeah, 25 years, I suppose. We really date it back.
Yeah, I think that'll be about it. Yes.
We used to role play together.
Yes.
I believe we used to role play Vampire.
Yeah, and we
we
knew through a mutual friend, Paul Mapleston.
That's right. Yes. Man America. Who,
Yeah.
This will mean nothing to anyone else apart from us two.
We're just a couple of old men, sort of reminiscing about the old days. Oh, yes.
And this was in Tunbridge Wells, and
Yes.
where you work now.
Yeah.
And I moved off to Brighton and London, all kinds of things. And you started working for Marvel. How did that come about? Because
Okay. Yes. Well, I've actually, it will be my 12th anniversary tomorrow. So I've been working for. I'll just explain for your listeners that Marvel UK is actually part of Panini UK. So most people will know that as the sticker people. So I'm pretty sure, all your listeners at some point in the past, they've all collected stickers, be it football stickers or Return of the Jedi, all those sticker albums, and swapping with your stickers in the
Are these the
playgrounds.
ones that you'd got in like the very beginning of the Star Wars? Those kind of stickers you see
Yes,
with
yeah.
the chewing gum? Oh no, they didn't.
They didn't come with chewing gum. The cards came with chewing gum. The sticker packs, you just buy your sticker pack and you had your album and you fill it in.
Yeah, so they've been going donkey's years.
Yes, absolutely donkey. Anyway, so Marvel UK is part of Panini UK. I'm one of the editors on the Marvel portfolio, and I am editor on Astonishing Spider-Man, which is our fortnightly newsstand title, and Marvel Legends, which is 4 weekly, and this is part of the collector's editions. And we have 7 titles in total. So as well as Astonishing and Marvel Legends, we also have Avengers Assemble, now called Avengers Universe because we relaunched it, Essential X-Men, Incredible Hulks, Mighty World of Marvel, and Wolverine and Deadpool.
Wow. Okay. So these are all the current most popular ones now.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've always been a massive Spider-Man fan. Massive Spider-Man fan. So doing Astonishing Spider-Man's like the best thing in the world. And Marvel Legends has Marvel's big 3: Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. And I'm a fan of all 3 of those as well. So it's a dream job. So I'm editor on those, and I'm also the editor on the graphic novel program.
Okay.
So
tell me what that is, because I don't know.
Basically, the graphic novels, you can buy them in Waterstones, W.H. Smith's, all good bookstores and online retailers, etc., and comic shops. And rather than it being individual issues of a comic, you will actually take an entire story arc and put it together in one book, and you read it in one hit. And the graphic novels have just been a phenomenal success.
Is that in recent years? Because I remember, the ones that I remember are The Watchmen, Batman Year One. I know it's DC, but
all of those started off as individual comics that were then put together as a graphic novel. And since really the graphic novels grew in popularity in the 80s and through the 90s, but it's been in the recent years, since 2000, that graphic novels have really grown in popularity. And shortly after I started at Panini, I was asked to take over the graphic novel program. And at that point, we were doing around about 20 books a year. Last year it was approaching 80. And this year we're going to smash that one as well.
And are they all comics series put together?
Yes.
Or do any of them go the other way? Start off as a graphic novel and then get split?
No, because what we're doing here is we're actually just getting the original US material. I mean, I think the nearest you could actually say the difference is that we've branched out from just also doing the US Marvel material, in that we also do Requiem Vampire Knight, which I don't know whether you would have heard of.
Sounds great.
It's fantastic. It is won the Eagle Award 2 years in a row for the best European comic. It's a French comic, but it's written by the godfather of British comics, Pat Mills.
Right.
And it is a phenomenal series. And in France has a completely different attitude to comics compared to the UK or America. Far more cosmopolitan, and Pat Mills has always been a big fan of European comics, and especially the French and their attitude, which is the reason why he created 2000 AD. Now he co-created this series with a phenomenal artist called Olivier Ledoux, and his artwork is breathtaking. And this is possibly one of the darkest comics you will ever come across, but it's got Pat's twisted sense of humour as well. And it all follows the storyline of a guy called Heinrich Requiem, who is an SS officer who dies on the Russian front, and because of his crimes in life, he is reincarnated in hell as one of the ruling elite, the Vampire Knights. And just to give you an example of Pat's twisted sense of humour, he's trained by this incredibly powerful vampire called Lord Kryptos, who looks like a vampiric baby. Because everything in hell, or the world of resurrection as it's called, at the time goes backwards. So all the vampires age backwards until they get so powerful, and then they just basically just disappear into little feti, and then just come apart. And so Lord Kryptos is incredibly powerful, but he suffers from juvenile dementia.
Okay.
So that is an example of where we've actually taken a French graphic novel, and we've repackaged that for the UK market. The French graphic novel is only 48 pages, and so what we've been doing is we've been putting two French books together for the UK market.
Okay, so 80 books a year is a huge amount for one studio.
Yeah.
Especially going from 10 and all the other work that you have done. So obviously you edit it, and so you have to read every single one.
I have to read, basically, and I'm sure your listeners will feel my pain, but basically I have to try and read everything that Marvel publishes every month.
Yes.
And that's a hell of a lot. Marvel US pump out a hell of a lot of material. Some of them I'm able to go, I know instantly that's not going to work, so I can just skip over that one. But the rest of it, yeah, I sit down and I have to work it out, and I'm going, okay, we're going to be doing this. This is one we're definitely going to be wanting to do, and working out when.
So, how many do you have to read? Obviously, 80 get through. How many don't get through that you have to?
Well, that's like saying how long is a piece of string.
Every month is different, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah. There are some series where I have to say that some series start off strong,
yes,
and then seem to lose their momentum. And so we've ended up going, okay, well, look, the sales on the first couple of volumes have been really good.
Yeah.
But look, we've now down to volume 4, and it seems that the readership is tailing off. And is it really going to be worth our while putting out volume 5?
Yeah.
No. So it gets chopped.
So when you first started, can you remember the first novel or comic that was presented to you and said, right, okay, this is what you have
okay,
to
well,
edit?
I've realised just now that I completely bypassed your original question, which was how did I get the job?
Yeah.
So if I answered that one and then hop back to that
go
one.
on.
Now, believe it or not, now you see, something else, listeners, is that Ollie and I also used to work together very briefly.
We did.
At Artifacts.
Yes.
And I then took, after Ollie left, I took over running the paint workshop. And I was there for a good few years until the company was bought out by Harvey Jones, and they decided to wind down the paint workshop. And
when we say paint workshop,
the furniture workshop.
I trained as a scenic artist.
Yes.
So we tried to make the paint as fancy as we possibly could.
Yes.
On chairs and tables and dressers and things like that.
And then charge a hideous amount of money for it as well.
Yes. But we digress.
Yes. Anyway, I was then made redundant from there, and I ended up, believe it or not, working for Royal Mail in their key accounts department. Babysitting I had a portfolio of accounts, and I was the office-based support, and my accounts were the top advertising agencies in the country. The Nectar Card, they were one of mine. Anyway, another friend of mine, Ed Hammond, he had been temping at Panini, and he heard that a job for a junior editor on the Marvel portfolio was coming up. And he said to me, "You've got to apply for it." I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a go. I've got no editorial or publishing background at all, but I'll give it a go.
However, you did manage Games Workshop for quite a few years. So you had some basis in running fantasy.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I was a manager for the Tunbridge Wells branch for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew I was able to manage things. Anyway, so I sent in my application, and unbelievably, I was invited in for an interview, and it was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. And I was interviewed by my colleague Scott Gray, who was the editor on all of the collector's editions, and this was why I was brought in, because they were expanding the collector's editions. And basically, Scott, it was just too much for him to be able to do it all on his own. And initially, it was supposed to be we were going to have a 15-minute chat, and then there was a 45-minute editorial test. Scott and I talked for about an hour about just wittering on to each other about comics and everything. Got on really well. And then I had the editorial test, and he put me in a room with no clock. So that was fun. And then I thought, oh, well, that's it. I've given it my best shot. I won't get it. It was about 2 weeks later, I got another phone call. Would I come in for a second interview with Alan O'Keefe, who is the managing editor? And came down and had about 40-minute chat with Alan. That all went well. Thought nothing more of it. Just thinking, I can't get my hopes, because I was nervous the first time. I was absolutely petrified the second time. And I'll never forget this. I got a phone call at work, and it was Alan saying, "We'd like to offer you the job. When can you start?" And I said, well, I'll have to work my notice. Got off the phone, had a look round, went to the toilets, checked there was no one in there, and just went, yes! Oh, yeah, I was overjoyed. So that's how I got the job. I then later found out that there had been, well, it was at least over 300 other applicants.
Wow.
Might have been more. Some of them who had years of experience in publishing, but what they didn't have was the knowledge. They didn't have the geek knowledge. So I am proud to say I am a professional geek. All those years where I was told that I was wasting my time reading comics when I was at school have actually all paid off. So Yaboo sucks to you.
There's
basically.
a lesson there.
Exactly. Follow your passion.
Quite right.
So,
Quite right.
yeah. My very first job that Scott gave me was we were approaching the 100th issue of Astonishing Spider-Man and Essential X-Men. And my first job was basically summarise everything that's happened in the previous 99 issues for both titles.
Oh, okay.
That was a mammoth task. Not only summarising it all, but also then sourcing all the pictures, because we were going to have this nice feature in each magazine, of everything that's going. So I had to make sure I found all the right images that we could use. God. So and learning at the same time, what will work well as a cutout. And that sort of thing, and that was my first task. That was really throwing me in at the deep end. But when I started, this is one of the interesting things, is that when I first started, not everything was digital at this point. We were still getting classic material from the States. We were still getting it coming in as film.
Wow, goodness me.
So 4-colour film. And if you've ever read an old comic and you've wondered why, well, why have they suddenly got blue hair or something like that? And it's probably because when they were doing it, when they were sending it off to the printers, they marked up the sheets wrong, because you have black, cyan, magenta and yellow, and you have to lay them over and make sure you have them.
These are... Sorry, I'm going to try to act as the person who has no idea what you're talking about, although I have a rough idea. So this is for me, it would be like Photoshop layers.
Yes.
Where you have, or if you're an animator in the olden days, with pre-CD and all that stuff, you would have the acetate that would have each cell drawn on and then laid up. But you have, for these, you have each colour. Each colour. Okay. So,
hence... People always still refer to superhero comics as 4-colour action, because each layer was made up of, as I said, cyan, magenta, yellow, and then black. And the black would be nice solid blacks, and all the text as well, all the speech balloons. And you had to make sure you identified which was the correct sheet for which colour, because if you put them the wrong way round, then you would end up with some very weird colour combinations coming out, and all of a sudden, the Human Torch has got blue hair instead of yellow hair.
Yeah,
you see. So that was one of my jobs as well. Was I'd get the film in, and sometimes as well you'd have to make little editorial changes as well. So if it was, for example, there was a caption box that was referring to an issue that was irrelevant, CFF 184. I would have to then take a scalpel and scratch out the asterisks, and usually, depending upon, you have to use this material called rubylith and stick that over to block out where the actual caption box was as well. So do all sorts of things.
So they're unbelievably labour intensive. So that was at the beginning.
Yeah.
So now, what is the process?
Now the process is far easier. Oh, it's unbelievable.
Don't tell them that.
No, for my job, it's far easier in that now we get all the material. I mean, for a long time it used to all arrive on disc. Now it doesn't. It's all sent by FTP.
Right.
And I send off my order and I will eventually get the material. I order everything so far in advance, as well, and I get the material in, and I will then. We mainly use the main program we use are InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator.
Just to quickly clarify for the listeners, basically what you get is submissions from Marvel America.
Yeah, we will actually get their original print files.
Yeah.
So that will include the InDesign document for the entire comic, all the TIFFs, so that's the colour art, and all the EPSs, which are all the speech balloons and sound effects and everything like that.
And they'll say to you, will it work in the UK?
Well, no, they won't say anything to me, because I will have I or Scott, who's on my colleague on the other titles, the Marvel Collector's Editions, we've already decided what will work in the UK.
Right.
We know our audience, and so we will actually say, right, we know the stories that we want to run, and we would. I mean, this is the reason why. It's one of the things that some of our readers on the collector's editions moan about, the fact that some of the titles are so far behind the US. The reason for this is because, especially when you've got something like Astonishing Spider-Man, which is fortnightly, we publish the other titles 13 times a year, and Astonishing is 26 times a year. Okay, the US only publishes each title 12 times. So if you're not careful, you catch up really, really quickly, and we have to have a buffer zone. And you will also find as well with the original US titles that they will actually slip in their schedule. Every fortnight, I get sent the Marvel US schedule, and I have to go through, and it is a mammoth Excel document that hurts my eyes, with over, I would say it's around about 2,000 entries. God. And each one will be a comic book or a graphic novel. And I have to go through it and check and seeing, and I will quite often find that a title that we're going to be publishing has slipped in its schedule, and it's usually either, it might be down to something like maybe the artist has had a problem and he's not going to be able to hit the deadline in time, and it has a knock-on effect. So with the collector's editions and with the graphic novels, we have to try and take that into account. The collector's editions, it's easier because we're able to really publish at our own schedule, our own pace. So we try and have a buffer zone, because we've been caught out before.
Do you also have, obviously now Disney, are producing all these Marvel movies, and they are coming out at an incredible rate. Do you have to keep an eye on that and go, right, we need to make sure we have some strong issues when this film comes out? Well,
ideally with the collector's editions, we try to, we'll try and tie things in there, but that's really more when it comes to the graphic novels. Yes. Now, I came up with an imprint for the graphic novels, which was the Marvel Platinum, the Definitives. So the very first one of those was the Marvel Platinum, the Definitive Silver Surfer. And the concept behind is basically it's your one-stop shop for everything you want to know about that character or team. And I'm currently working on the 16th in the Marvel Platinum series. Okay, and what we do is it will always include the origin story. There will also be, from then, the very, very best stories of their appearance from their entire history, from their first appearance to the present day. You'll get the earlier ones, as I mentioned, I've worked with Stan Lee, had an exclusive Stan Lee intro. I'll come back to that. There will also be the Marvel Universe entry, so you will actually be able to find out everything. It has their full history, and goes into all the details about their powers as well, and their equipment. And then there is the true origin of, which a great guy called Mike Conroy, who writes for me, and he does a lot of research into these, but it's basically not how the character got their powers, but how usually Stan Lee and Jack Kirby actually came up with the concept in the first place.
Fantastic.
Now, the Marvel Platinums are the ones that I will tie those into a movie. So I know that the Avengers: Age of Ultron is coming out. Now we've already done. I already did a Marvel Platinum Avengers book for when the first film came out. So we have done the Marvel Avengers it's Marvel Platinum, The Definitive Avengers Reloaded, and that book has just come out, and this time I have focused it more on the Avengers battles with Ultron.
Yes.
And it includes a fantastic story in there called by Kurt Busiek, who's a brilliant writer, one of my favourite writers, and George Perez, who's an awesome artist. And it's the story that actually mainly inspired the film. There's a big sequence in the movie where all these Ultrons and Ultron droids and everything are attacking this Middle Eastern, fictitious Middle Eastern, not Middle Eastern, Eastern European country called Slovenia. And that's actually taken directly from this storyline that George Perez and Kurt Busiek did, and I thought I have to put that book in. I have to put it in the book.
And you must be quite happy that they're going to have Spider-Man.
Yes,
Worked into it as well.
Oh yes. That is possibly the biggest thing for me ever. I'm a bit disappointed that the rumour currently is that Andrew Garfield won't be reprising his role, as I actually think he was the best. I really liked him as Peter Parker. He was brilliant.
But in fairness, there haven't been that many. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and before that, it was in the 70s.
Yeah,
so,
with the incredible TV series,
yes.
TV movies. Yeah, I've forgotten his name. That's terrible. Which they shot in LA, trying to make it look like it was downtown.
Yes, there were no other superheroes, but no, there weren't any other superheroes.
There weren't any other.
No.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, look, Tobey Maguire was all right, but he wasn't Peter Parker.
No.
Andrew Garfield caught the essence of Peter Parker far better in my opinion.
I think the current rumor, you probably know the rumours more than I do, but they're going to make him a teenager again. And really make him. Which kind of makes sense. As long as we don't have any more origin stories.
I know, we often have that discussion in the office. It's like, really? And you have to think, well, okay, it's been over 10 years since the last time they rebooted the franchise. So you've got all these kids. For them, it will be the first time they'll have seen Spider-Man.
Yes.
You see.
Well, and what about the Fantastic Four? Because they're rebooting all that as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of any comics or graphic novels that are going to link in with that?
Marvel Platinum, The Definitive Fantastic Four. There we go.
Yeah.
Your one-stop shop for everything you want to know about the FF. Actually, this one I also thought I'll focus it a lot on Doctor Doom because I love Doctor Doom. He's my favourite villain. I think he's brilliant, and he has been a perfect arch nemesis. And so there's a lot of Doom in that book as well, and also there's. I mean, I guess part of this job, I'm able to indulge my own selfish whims here because I'm able to pick stories that I just think are absolute crackers. I mean, the biggest and the hardest one for doing the Fantastic Four book was that Stan and Jack were so pioneering. Within the Fantastic Four were the characters that kick-started the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. And
within the first 5 years, they had filled it so much with all of these great characters and alien races.
Who did they come up with? People who aren't into Marvel. Spider-Man, was that in that 5 years?
Spider-Man, The Incredible Hulk, the X-Men, the Avengers, so Iron Man, Captain America. They brought Captain America back.
Yeah.
Daredevil. They introduced the alien races like the shape-shifting Skrulls, the Kree, Galactus, Silver Surfer, the Inhumans. The Inhumans, of course, now are playing a big part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe on TV because they're cropping up in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Last series was all to do with that, built all up to it, that whole Inhuman city. It's the Inhumans. So they just absolutely filled it. Now, I could have easily filled this book with nothing but Stan and Jack stories.
Yeah.
That would have been easy. But I thought, no, people aren't going to want that. They're not going to want all the really old material. They want to see other stuff over the years. So I've picked some great stories from the other decades, and one of my favourite ones is a two-parter by a guy called Len Wein, and I can't remember the artist. Oh, that's bad of me. But basically, it's all about witchcraft.
Oh, that sounds good.
So not often you'd have the Fantastic Four and witchcraft and being mashed together, and it's brilliant.
When I was talking about coming up with the fantasy podcast, I was thinking, well, how am I going to define what is classed as fantasy? And it's quite tricky. And I kind of put it into two, three rules. But the main rule: does magic exist in the universe? And could you conceivably see a dragon also exist in the universe? And Marvel, both. Yes. I mean, you've got the Scarlet Witch and
Doctor Strange.
And Doctor Strange. So definitely magic for
magic is very prevalent in the Marvel universe, and you even do have dragons, Fing Fang Foom.
Yeah.
For one.
Yeah, so it's definitely fantasy.
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about guys who can crawl on walls. And
I was including Star Wars as well. That's,
yes, the Force is complete magic.
It was until they introduced the Phantom Menace, and then they try and have some sort of scientific reason.
Oh, but think about it. That's just an intermediary. The midichlorians are just an intermediary between you and the Force.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Well, that kind of took it out a little bit, because as a child, you can say, and you're going to have the Force.
Yes. Yeah.
But then they introduced that, and well, I'm not going to have any midichlorians, because I'm not an alien. So that kind of took that little bit of fantasy away from me. But I digress slightly. Now, you've met... have you met Stan?
Yes, I have met Stan, yes.
And can you tell us what he's like?
Well, Stan is... He's exactly as you've always perceived him. He is the loveliest guy ever. He is so enthusiastic. Now, bless him. He's getting on a bit now. I think it was back in early part of January. He had his 92nd birthday, and he's still going strong. And like I said, with the Marvel Platinum books, for a long time he was writing the introductions for me, until a couple of years ago. He actually turned around and said to me, "Brady, I'm really sorry, but unbelievably, I'm working harder now than I've ever done in my life before, and I just don't have the time to do it." And I thought, well, considering he does the cameos, and he's got a TV show in the States as well, and he's making loads of personal appearances and everything, and he's in his 90s.
Yes,
I was like, okay, Stan, don't worry. It's fine. And he actually said, "You know what? You do such a great job writing a Stan Lee. You should do it." So I did. So
wow.
So now I write the intros for the Marvel Platinums as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
That's
but
great.
Stan is fantastic.
Is he very hands-on within the Marvel?
Not anymore. No, he stepped back from Marvel a long time ago, about over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And he's got his own company now as well. I mean, you might remember that all the comics used to say Stan Lee Presents.
Yeah.
My favourite one was actually with the cartoon series, and I always loved the intros. Like do you remember Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends?
I do indeed.
Yeah, and I always loved it. "You all know me. I'm Stan Lee." I love that. That was my childhood right there. Although controversially, we've got a big Spidey story arc coming up, and this spoiler alert, people. Spoiler alert. Anyway, Dan Slott, awesome man, writer on Spider-Man. He's got this awesome storyline going on, and it's called Spider-Verse. And there's a point in the Spider-Verse because it's related to every single Spider-Man in every single reality. Now, probably where Marvel Universe, like with DC and a lot with the comic verse, they deal with a multiverse. You've got alternative realities. And so someone is going through all the realities and killing and eating the life force of Spider-Men and women. Anyone with who is an avatar of the Spider Totem. And there's one point, and it's quite... because they've got to the universe of the Amazing Spider-Man and his amazing friends, and they've slaughtered a lot of them, and they've just got this panel, and they're all dead. Iceman and Firestar and Spidey just littered about their apartment. If you remember in the cartoon series, the apartment, it was actually their base, and they'd press a switch, and the sofa would swing back, and a computer bank would come out, and it was all like that. And there was only Duchess, the dog. That's the only one that's left in the ruins. Oh, that was heartbreaking. Oh, my childhood was raped for a moment. Damn you, Dan Slott! But it's fantastic. It's awesome.
Now, the other thing that you do is the sort of the younger version for the Marvel. So like
I don't actually deal with those myself. I'm not involved with them at all.
Yeah.
But we do publish Marvel superheroes. Actually, my senior editor Simon Frith is heavily involved with that, along with my colleague, some of my other colleagues, and Sam Taylor, who's a great member of staff who's just recently joined us. He started off as an intern, and with that, that's where it's actually a commission comic strip, but that's done through Marvel US directly.
Okay.
And so the scripts are submitted, and it all there's multiple layers of approvals and stuff like that. So that's.
But I had another interview today, which would have been the last episode, and we were talking about how comics are when we were 8, 9, 10, 12, the level of violence in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, to what is acceptable now. Do you think they're similar? Do you think they're much harder? I think right for the junior titles, it's been softened a hell of a lot. And one of my big bugbears is when I don't like stuff when it's dumbed down. Yeah. The reason why I have a good vocabulary is not just because I read a lot, but also because I read comics, and comics used words in them that I didn't know what that was. If I didn't know, I'd either ask or I'd go and look it up in a dictionary. Yeah. And that's how I learnt. Too often, there's this culture of, oh no, you can't possibly use that word because the children don't understand. Well, no, they might not understand, but that's how they learn. Yeah. When it comes to the violence, I actually think the violence hasn't changed. No. It really hasn't changed. The only thing that might have changed is, in the past, you took a Wolverine comic from the past, and there'd be blood splatters. The blood splatters were black. Yeah. They're now red. Okay. So in some ways it's got worse.
Yeah. But I look at it in terms of there's still just the same amount of gore in some comics, like a Wolverine comic, as there was in 2000 AD. Yeah. I remember seeing things like, what was the story? Oh, God. Absolutely. Bad Company. Do you remember Bad Company?
I don't, but I remember reading Judge Dredd and thinking that just blowing away people.
Blowing, but you see sort of limbs flying off. Or even fantastic stories that, by, for instance, like Pat Mills, Charlie's War, which was all about World War One. Yeah. One lad's experience in World War One, and that didn't pull its punches.
No. Now I also sort of the films from the 80s. I mean, I saw a poster of the Goonies today, and it's got bad language in it. Yeah. Really quite bad language.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's got lots of connotation. It's really scary at points. And I don't think you get that quite so much in kids' movies now.
I think people have become very precious. I mean, the interesting thing is like my daughter. She's only 22 months, okay, but she loves all the scary stuff. But the funny thing is as well, it's like she loves Jack and the Beanstalk, story of Jack and the because she loves the ogre, and she loves the ogre, but she's scared of the ogre. But whenever the ogre turns up, what does she want to do? Kiss him. She wants to kiss him. And as you know, we live near to Leeds Castle, and she loves going to the castle because that's where the ogre lives. And whenever we go there, she's always trying to find the ogre.
Well, who's probably one of the best children's authors? Roald Dahl.
Exactly. Yeah.
He never shone away from scaring children, having giants eat babies and.
No, well, what about? Do you remember how Rick Mayall got into loads of trouble when he did Jack Anori and told George's Marvellous Medicine?
Yes.
And people complained. And the basic premise of the story is George is trying to poison his nasty, evil grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think they should harden up a little bit, children nowadays.
Yeah. Well, the big difference between then and now is that on a publishing side of things, is that the comic industry has changed dramatically from when we were a kid. Now, the collector's editions do well, but their readership is generally, they're older, and we have very, very awesome, loyal fans. They are fantastic. I love meeting them when I do conventions. Whereas younger kids, they don't have the same loyalty. I think it's something they'll develop as they get older. But what they're attracted to when they buy a comic is not the actual comic, it's the cover gift.
Oh, okay.
And that, I remember when we were kids, if you got a lollipop or some kind of shooter thing on the front cover, you were like, oh, brilliant, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you go into any WH Smiths or newsagents and you will see the majority of kids' comics, they all have a cover gift. And it's the cover gift that sells the comic, not the comic itself.
And do you think that the way it's being absorbed now, that people have iPads and iPhones and apps to read comics, is that affecting?
Well, the interesting thing there is that whereas newspapers, for example, and magazines are suffering massively through the digital revolution, comics aren't. Because it takes so much memory and everything, the files, to actually properly render the artwork, that it's difficult. The other thing as well is, and from speaking with a lot of comic fans at conventions, who admit, and they say, yes, yeah, I read the digital comics, I'll buy the. But what they do is they read loads and loads of digital comics, and from that they then decide which ones they actually want to have the actual hard copy.
Yeah.
So they use it as a sampling.
Well, the artwork is so beautiful. It's
exactly.
You just pull out and just have on the coffee as a coffee table.
And there's something far nicer about actually holding the comic book in your hand and turning the pages, and rather than holding your iPad or whatever and swishing.
Yes.
And sometimes as well, especially if you've got a double page spread, and that can be quite difficult because you swish the button and then you've got to turn it because you can't actually see the whole thing, and you're not going to get the same impact as when you just turn and go, wow, look at that.
Because I suppose you get in a certain zone when you're reading a comic.
Yes.
The comic disappears and it's all the story.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Takes it out of you. Yeah. So, Brady, how do we find out about the next issues, and how do we keep in contact with what's happening with Marvel UK? What's the best sort of contact?
Well, we for the collector's editions, we have a Facebook page, which is a great way to interface. Just search on Facebook Marvel Collector's Editions. I run that. I apologise, guys, because I broke my collarbone October 6th, and so I was not able to actually. I was working from home for 4 months.
Yeah. Do you want to briefly say how you broke it?
Do I have to?
Yes, you do.
Right. Okay. We were shooting a company video, and I was asked to wear the company's Spider-Man costume and perform and do some stunts. Now, as I already mentioned, I do live-action role-playing, so my colleagues know I'm a physically active person, and so hence the reason why I was coerced into doing this. And now the problem with the Spider-Man costume, and you wouldn't get this in the films, you see, is the Spider-Man costume is there's no traction on the sole whatsoever. It's like you're running around in your socks, which is exactly what I was. Underneath the costume, I had my socks on, and already done a whole load of combat rolls and somersaults and Spidey poses because I've been asked to do this one piece do it in one take.
Yes.
You know, start off over there, run to this bush, then come out and do these things and blah blah blah. I was running along towards the camera and I could feel my footing was going, and I thought, I don't want to ruin the shot. I don't want to have to do this again. So rather than plant my face in the dirt, I thought I'll go into another combat roll, which I did, and I came down a little bit heavy on my left shoulder. Got up, hurt a little bit, but it was fine. It was at that point my managing editor said to me, right, we now want you to hang upside down from that tree. Which I duly obliged, and it was whilst I was getting down, I had to put all my weight on my left shoulder. And as I did so, I felt the bone pop.
Ow.
And I got down and I just sank to my knees and just went, oh, that doesn't feel good. And my shoulder was, something was sticking out. You know.
Can we see this video anywhere?
Well, the frustrating thing about it is they only ended up using 3 seconds of footage.
No!
So I had to be taken to A&E, but I insisted on changing out of the costume. I was not going to go into A&E dressed as Spider-Man. And it turns out it was a very, very nasty break. They tried to let it heal naturally, which took 2 months, and then at the beginning of December they went, it's not healing the way we want it to, so we're going to cut you open and put a hook and plate in. So yeah, I was off work and working from home for 4 months.
Wow.
And I basically, living in this tiny little village, I didn't leave it unless I was going to the hospital. That was basically it. My life was really, really limited.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, but you're looking well now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, thank you very much, Brady Webb, and thank you for your time. And are you on Twitter at all?
Well, I've set up a Marvel Collector's Edition Twitter, but I've really got to start using it.
Yes. I think Marvel UK is on there.
Yeah. That will be the Marvel UK. I believe that will actually be the Disney UK office.
Okay.
It gets very complicated, doesn't it? But Facebook, Marvel Collector's Editions. Yes. We've also got the Panini Marvel graphic novel group on Facebook as well. Readers can email astonspid at panini.co.uk or Marvel Legends at panini.co.uk or Collectors Ed at panini.co.uk.
Cool. Are you doing any conventions this year?
In fact, I'm doing one in 2 weeks. We'll be at London Super Comic Con, which is the 14th to the 15th at the XL. We will then be at MCM Expo, which is also at the XL. That is towards the end of May. I think that's the 24th to the 26th. We will then be doing London Film and Comic Con, which is being held at Olympia. That's the 16th to the 17th of July. And then we'll be back at MCM in October as well.
Fantastic.
So that will. They're always a lot of fun. I love meeting the fans, especially the ones who come in cosplay and dress up. Fantastic. And
Well, thank you very much for wearing your Spider-Man outfit for me for this interview as well.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's a bit difficult to drink a cup of tea when you're wearing the mask, but there we go.
Thank you, Brady.
You're welcome.
And it's there I left Brady hanging from his ceiling. Now, I hope you enjoyed that interview. We're having a little bit of a break for at least 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm going to be rejoining you, or unless something exciting happens, but I'm going to be rejoining you with an interview from Peter Burrows, who co-runs Willow Management along with Warwick Davis, and we're going to be chatting about all the fantasy films that he's been in, from The Dark Crystal to Labyrinth to Star Wars to Harry Potter. Sounds like it's going to be a great day. Now, you can obviously find and follow us on Twitter, and I'll let the lovely lady tell you about that in a moment. But I'd also like to thank all our new followers from Spreaker. Now, if you don't know what Spreaker is, it's basically the way I host my podcasts, and that goes out to all the other sort of avenues, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, etc. But on Spreaker, I now have 168 followers. I don't know where they all came from. I'm delighted you're following us, and come and say hello. Who have we got here? Brian Huss, Christopher Pryor, Joshua Cattle, Rosa Angela, Rachel Veronica, Glennis Wright, Matthew Simons, Natalie Brooks, Amy Curtis, loads of you here. Thank you so much. It's so encouraging to get some feedback and to know that you are enjoying the show so far. But for now, have a wonderful week, and we'll speak to you on the next show.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. We want to hear from you. Find and follow us on Twitter @TheFantasyPod